Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. That's Dionne Miller, ABC 7 Chicago. We are bringing you all the news, nuggets, details, and latest analysis of the Chicago Bears in a potentially landmark offseason of 2023. But here today, we're going to talk a little bit about QB1, as you like to call him, H1M, him with the one as the I.
No, let the record show. That is like the one expression I hate is H1M.
All right.
Slow your roll, everyone. There is still a lot to learn about him. He is him. Who is that? He's not the second coming of the Lord. My goodness, give him a minute. All right, sorry. That one bothers me. All right.
Well, so that leads us into a project I did for the Chicago Tribune that people can find at chicagotribune.com. And it was called Becoming Him ? Right? Because you have to add the question mark, as you pointed out. And it was a deep dive on the book on Justin Fields. And it was the book on Justin Fields from people who worked very closely with him inside of Halas Hall, including but not limited to Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, and Andrew Janocko. And it was the book on Justin Fields as people around the league see him as well. And it was a really interesting project for me to take on to sort of see how the temperature in Chicago compares to the temperature around the league on Justin Fields. And I do think that for me at the end of this, and I'm going to ask you in a minute for some of the things that you took away as we learned more from people around the league, my sense is that there is a very, very honest assessment of Justin Fields league-wide that is mirrored by the very, very honest assessment of Justin Fields inside the walls at 1920 Football Drive in Lake Forest. And that heartened me. It encouraged me because I don't think that the Bears are seeing strengths that the rest of the league don't see. And by the same token, they're not ignoring weaknesses that the rest of the league does point out. I thought that was notable as I talked to people and as I talked to people within the Bears organization as well. I'm curious what some of your initial thoughts were.
Well, I think that I'm grateful that inside Halas Hall, they aren't declaring him H1M all over the place, right? That's what I heard over and over again. I mean, I love hearing from Janocko and how he so honestly reacted to some of those splash plays that were so great, but then also recognized that Justin's desire to get better is to be a well-rounded quarterback, not just to have those moments. And they did resonate in Chicago. They did have people on social media freaking out. But the one, and you mentioned it with when Trevor Siemian was out there and you said, what was his favorite pass? I'll never forget this during the season. And it was some simple pass.
Yeah,
he said just how quickly he got to that check down. And it just showed, and it obviously Getsy loved that, Janocko loved that, because it shows that Justin is trying to learn. And that's what he noticed right away. It was just a ho-hum play, but just what he needs to learn to get there. And I feel like that, if nothing else, the way that the league views Justin is even the same way that he views himself, in that he knows he's got to learn to be more well-rounded, but he wants to do that. He wants to be the franchise. He wants to own the city, as we've talked about so many times. He wants to be there. That was a major takeaway that I took. And also that around the league, they recognize the talents that he does have, but they also see the same things the Bears do, right? These are the areas he needs to progress in. I felt just like you just said, it was all echoed kind of in the same vein.
Yeah. Well, you bring up that play in New York when Trevor Siemian started against the Jets, and it's a check down pass with a recognition of the blitz coming from the left by Trevor Siemian. And it's a pass thrown within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage that resulted in a 33-yard gain and a first and goal opportunity.
Right.
Justin Fields created highlights left and right for months that then became the roots and the fuel for these hype montages that you can find all over social media with cool music and great graphics, and it looks like a Hollywood movie. The fact that the quarterback himself singled out a play that was just a quick check down to the line of scrimmage, it allows you to understand that Justin understands what quarterbacking is in this league. Now it's all about, can you do the things that allow you to take that understanding and turn it into game day production? And to what we've talked about for months, Justin is aware of that. And what I've loved about Justin the most is he knows he has flaws. He knows he has things he has to work on. He knows that he was one of 3 quarterbacks in NFL history to run for 1,000 yards, and yet got to the end of the season being like, I'm okay if I never come anywhere near that record again because I want to be seen as a passer. And so the Bears, I think, embrace the heck out of that in knowing that they have a guy who's invested into the actual process of becoming a high-level NFL quarterback. And so on the plus side, that's a really notable trait.
And when they say he needs to take the next step in his game, I know that he hears that. And I know that that's how he's spending his off season, right? Like he knows what he wants to be working on, and he will come back, I feel like, a stronger and different quarterback based on the experiences that he had this season and what he learned from that, and not wanting to be that running quarterback that is rushing for 1,000 yards all the time.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, some of the things that you hear from around the league is that there was that obvious upsurge in production for the Bears in October and early November, but it didn't sustain itself. And by the end of the year, the offense was clunky again, and there were injuries, and there were problems on the offensive line, and Darnell Mooney wasn't playing, and the receiving core was beat up, and there was a lot of context and nuance to all that. But the Bears offense finished the 2023 season with a whimper, and Justin's season finished with a whimper. And so they have to find a way now going forward to, just unlock some of that on a more consistent basis. It's like I've said, it's the rest of the league made a chess move and said, oh, okay, here's how we defend them. Now the Bears have to counter, and that's up to Justin. It's up to Luke Getsy. Ultimately, it's up to Ryan Poles to go get him some pieces that he can play with, and that'll be fun to look at as well.
I loved that Justin never once this season, and no one else in Halas Hall said, well, he doesn't have that much around him. Like they never said, he never acknowledged that. It was about, how do we get this? How do I win with this? Is how Justin, I think, carried himself this season. And I think that is very valuable to have that kind of perspective, and now turn to Ryan Poles to see what he can do.
Justin is that way. He's wired that way, but I do think he benefits from the presence of Luke Getsy, who is so day-to-day process driven and just keeps him in that mind frame on, like, let's not worry about all this big picture stuff all the time. Let's just stay here and work on making these incremental steps and these fundamental improvements, and the results will show over time. Obviously, the leadership intangibles, the ownership that Justin has is noted by everyone inside that building. It's why I think they're going to go into 2023 feeling like they owe him the opportunity to show who all he can be as a quarterback. And now it's his opportunity to do so, because I do think you and I both agree that by the time the 2023 regular season ends, there's going to be much less gray area in the outside world and in the inside world on who Justin is and who he can become as a quarterback. It's why it makes it one of the most compelling stories in Chicago sports for the calendar year of 2023. And I know you're just as eager as I am to watch it unfold and to have this discussion a year from now to go, aha, this is the direction it went.
Same. I'm very excited about that. It did catch me, though, when you noted that he's missed 7 games because of injury in 2 seasons and only has 5 wins. And it was like, okay, this is where that needs to, let's not forget that there hasn't been success, right? Like, let's not forget that needs to come with the next steps of his progress and the next step in his game. And that Ryan Poles has never been shy about what he expects from him. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. One other thing that I took note of I've said this on other platforms, I had to go look this up 2 and 3 times because it didn't compute in my brain. The Bears did not touch 21 points after Thanksgiving. I think we got caught in this state of euphoria of all the things that they had done to break through, and they never touched 21 points after Thanksgiving. And it was jarring to think of that. The other notable stat for me is that, Justin's only had 6 career games where he's gotten to 200 yards passing. We're not even talking about 300 yards passing, 6 out of 25 starts. And so those are the things around the league where people put a little asterisk on it and say, just keep an eye on this. I'm not saying that this is a red flag or a sign that he's going to, bottom out here, but it's certainly just something to keep an eye on as he goes forward. Again, I think we're both in agreement that Justin's going to pour himself into 2023, and the results of that are going to be a byproduct of how much growth he's able to make. But he's certainly not going to fail because he's not understanding of what it takes to reach those levels. And for the Bears' sake, that's really, really, really fun, and it's really infectious to have that inside your locker room.
October 24th. Let us never forget the last victory of 2022. And now it's time to move on.
We're turning the page. She's turning the page. I'm turning the page. Free agency of the draft are almost here. Stick with us. We're going to keep turning pages until there are no more pages to be turned. That's Dionne. I'm Dan. Like, subscribe. Keep watching our shows. Recommend them to your friends. We will have more content as we go.